All right, we're getting there. All right. Why don't we start? My name is Natalia Rudiak. I am with ReImagine Appalachia. For folks who are coming in, why not put your name in the chat, your organization, your pronouns, and where your organization works and or where you may be located right now. That would be great. So we get to know each other a little bit. Feel free to turn your camera on if you'd like, so we can have a robust discussion. I'm Natalia. Um, I am here with Shannon Rudak, also, who's floating out here somewhere, who's going to be our note taker with ReImagine today. And I'm also here with Commissioner Shireen Hess. There's Shannon with Shireen Hess, who is a commissioner from Indiana County, Pennsylvania, rural county, in, how would you describe it? Central Western PA.
So southwestern PA,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah. And we're going to have a conversation around what some of the barriers we're facing in community development. How do we best respond to this moment? And how we can help each other identify some technical assistance resources for community economic development. How do we translate some of these federal opportunities to action? And really, how do we break this status quo pattern for under-resourced communities to get federal funding this time around? Because we know that we're in an unprecedented crossroads. And this is the time. So I should also mention I am a former city council member in the city of Pittsburgh, and I represented some of the most underinvested neighborhoods in the city of Pittsburgh. And indeed, I saw time and time again how some of the haves kind of kept getting layers of whether it was local, state, or federal funding, while organizations or those communities that did not have community development organizations or otherwise kind of kept getting left behind. So we don't have the answers. Let's put it that way. We do not have the answers. We're here to brainstorm the answers together and network and help each other. And I do have some resources that may be able to help, but we're going to share them along the way. So again, if you just came in, feel free to put your name and your organization, your pronouns, your location in the chat, maybe where your organization works. And again, we'll be saving all this information and sending out the links and things for folks who are here. So don't fret. We'll be sending out this information afterwards. All right. I'm going to pass it over to Commissioner Hess, who I've known for a long time, who has been very diligent in her work in Indiana County to connect the dots with community and economic development, particularly within the sustainable economy realm in an area that maybe I'm trying to think of how to put this delicately, challenged with, how to maybe think differently and think outside of the box in terms of sustainable economic development. So, but I'll pass it over to you, Shireen, and hopefully you can share screen. If you can't, let me know.
I will try in 1 second here, but hello, everyone. And I just want to thank the folks from ReImagine Appalachia for this nice opportunity. And I will say that I really am going to go back to, we don't have all the answers, and some days probably very few. Feeling lots of challenges bearing down on us. So, but I always like to come up to these kinds of events and talks and sharing of information with a real sense of optimism. And because first of all, it gets you into a frame of mind of thinking, but I think there's real reason to be optimistic in Appalachia. Indiana County is really part of Northern Appalachia. And in fact, we have a great festival every fall called the Northern Appalachian Folk Festival. And so I encourage you all to look it up and come see it. It gets better every year. I think we're on our 11th year this year. So just a little commercial for that, but I will try to share my screen to tell you a little bit about what we have done in Indiana County. So one moment. All right, I think I got it there now. If I can just, someone will tell me how I get it to just show the big part, the
Yeah, if you go to view, I believe at the
you.
tippy top. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh
then
no, did I do that correctly?
I just want to eliminate that
Or
side.
slideshow. I'm sorry, maybe it's slideshow, I believe. I did
Okay,
it. I instructed you
sorry, I don't
exactly
know
from the
that.
beginning. Or from the beginning. Yeah, there
Got
you
it.
go.
All right. Wow. All right. So I like to think about all these activities we do as people, places, and projects. And um, the I've done a couple of these things for our Sustainable Economic Development Task Force, which I'll say a little bit about how we develop that. And they always seem to come back to that theme, people and places. And I'm in my third term now. I just thought I'd show you a little montage of pictures to show you the diversity of what I do as a county commissioner. And I'm really proud of all the partners that I get to work with. You know, you can see that lower left corner is Giselle Fetterman, and she came and talked to us when we built a new domestic shelter, domestic violence shelter, which is just a wonderful day for us. And that is a facility that does so much more than just shelter people. It's all sorts of wraparound services and helping people really get on with their lives and talk about removing barriers. That upper picture up there above that is about our broadband development. We do a lot with childcare and child youth development.
Oh, I think Shireen, we're just seeing your title screen. Are
Oh,
you
really?
moving
Okay. What
forward?
if I
Yeah.
do
Try it again. Maybe click on, yeah, the side screen is still showing. Try also F5, maybe
what if
F5 typically works.
what if I just do that? But I
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah, but what happens if you click from the beginning? Does that do anything? No.
no, you
Oh,
know,
okay. Well, you'll need to just click
maybe I'll just
forward and yeah.
yeah,
Um,
sorry about that, but yeah, okay. Well,
we'll
anyway,
set up the presentation afterwards as well.
yeah, for sure. I just want to say like a little bit about all the great stuff I get to do as a county commissioner, um, human services and food security and housing and substance use treatment and um, children and youth and veteran services and seniors, and then 911 and emergency management and courts and corrections, and tourism and economic development, and of course, elections, which is very near and dear to my heart. Um, all those things have some intersection with what is going on in community revitalization now and the enormous amount of resources that are coming down to our communities. So I guess my main point with that is to say, um, county government is so, to have them as a partner, local government is just, is such a benefit for any of these projects and these things that we're doing. And, you know, talk about workforce development, the Workforce Investment Board, and I'll show you a list of all the partners we've had. That's a big one. So I just want to say a little bit about Indiana County. Like all the places in Appalachia, we've struggled over the many decades with deindustrialization and coal mine closures, and our poverty rate just continues to grow. I don't know if you're all familiar with the Alice report. These are folks who represent both those in poverty, but also the working poor. And we have an enormous amount of people in Indiana County, many more than the other counties in our metropolitan planning area. Um, we are just a county that was once one of the wealthiest counties in America, and you know, due to those things, we're not. And last year, we unfortunately saw the final closure of the Homer City Generating Station, which is the state's largest coal-fired power plant. So dealing with that, so we're a coal community. Um, but you know, some many years ago, I was part of a great organization, and I got some of some of the folks from that organization may be on here. The Center for Community Growth, and a couple of other organizations, the League of Women Voters, and a watershed protection organization called Evergreen Conservancy, and some other folks got together and said, well, we really want to address these things. We know the coal plant, the coal-fired power plant is going to close. So what are we gonna do about those jobs that are gonna be lost? Where are those workers gonna be going? You know, what are we gonna do with, and at the same time, we knew that the clean energy revolution was happening. So, you know, what are we going to do? So, you know, the Center for Community Growth, they featured documentaries about communities in transition, did a lot of community education, held panels, also worked on the side, you know, in the realm of helping people access, you know, fresh foods and trying to work with our farmers markets and trying to do a bunch of community things that would kind of fill in some gaps for people in need of those kinds of services and resources. So fast forward to 2017, and I can't believe it's that many years ago, there was a petition that was circulated around the county, and hundreds of people said, yes, we want to do something with sustainability. And eventually this group came to the county commissioners, and I had just become a county commissioner at that time, and convinced us that, yes, this was a good idea to develop a task force to study what these, try to find answers to these questions, but not in a top-down approach, more of a bottom-up approach. So that's the underpinning of the Indiana County Sustainable Economic Development Task Force. And talk about a coalition. We brought together all the folks that maybe weren't necessarily talking about sustainability, and maybe even, you know, kind of got their hackles up a little bit when you talked about coal-fired power plants closing. But we managed to get all those people in the room, our economic development folks, Tourist Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce people, all the environmental groups, educational groups, all these talk about a coalition. And those are the 4 focus areas that we looked at. And, you know, lots and lots of work going on, lots of conversations, and very much facilitated too. This wasn't just get in a room and everybody throw out their ideas. This was very facilitated. And that's one thing I would recommend to communities is, if you can do it, find a good facilitator and go through this process. It's very, very much a building process, and collaboration is how, you know, that's your aim. You can't do it without a lot of talking and listening. And I think we all know how that works. Anyway, we went on to be one of the best solar cooperatives, apparently, in Pennsylvania. That's something that grew out of this that we were very pleased about. We have, you know, just take a look at this setup. So that was fun. That's one of our folks in the thing. And then so this is where we really started to talk about how we're going to access some federal funding. And we were lucky enough to get some technical assistance through this through local foods, local places program. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. I think it still exists, but it was a great exercise. A bunch of the small business administration, USDA, EPA, a few other groups came and did a community assessment and spent a few days with us as a group. And then we had a 2-day meeting, very much a community building kind of a thing. And then we have this report that we developed goals, and you know, and some real, you know, really was an outgrowth of our Sustainable Economic Development Task Force. So yeah, so that's our task force. And I think that the thing, what the next big step that developed is, okay, what's next? Now we realized this opportunity through the USDA, the technical assistance thing. And, you know, over the years, I've developed some nice relationships with the interagency working group, with the Just Transition Fund. I think people are probably pretty well aware of that, but I thought, let's go for one of these. And so I can't say a whole lot about it, but we've got some funding coming from a federal agency. It's not, we have to sort of embargo our true announcement about it yet. So, but I would like to say that it's sort of the next steps. And I was listening to the other presenters and thinking, gosh, we're also just sort of starting out at this, but what I'm really proud of is that it's a really community-based thing. It's bottom up as much as it can get. And I think that's what's going to make us unique. And we are targeting, there's a lot of efforts going on in workforce and economic development, but there's also a lot of gaps with the structure that is in place right now. And our aim is to not push up against those existing efforts, but to complement them and to fill the gaps, because there certainly are the gaps for those marginalized communities. So I will leave it at that. And Natalia, is that a good kind of introduction to?
Yeah, I think that's great. And thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Hess. We really appreciate that. And I think it's interesting to see a mix of, how do I put this, soft and hard power. I know, Commissioner Hess, you came from a community, passionate about community background, and came into some of the more hard power. And I know we have some elected officials on this call, and some state and federal agency representatives on this call, but we definitely need to consider that mix. And hey, run for office. As a former elected official, I'll say, please run for office. We need you. Yes, and I see a number of elected officials that are excited about that prospect too. I'm going to put a link in the chat, another Mentimeter, and let's see what happens when we do this. This Mentimeter, feel free to click on it and fill it out. We want to hear from you. What's one struggle you're having in connecting federal resources to your community? And while we wait for responses there, if you're having issues, do let me know. Yeah, let me see if anybody's having issues in the chat. If you're having issues, let me know in the chat. Get some responses in here. There we go. Lack of experienced grant writers. What else do we got? Political. Yeah, I think I see some people shaking their heads. Federal grants have a quick turnaround time. What else do we got here? Matching funds. Yeah. Seeing a lot of capacity at the municipal and county level. Yeah, this is great. And these are definitely, we really appreciate this, because these are definitely some things that we want to take back and have a conversation around. Overwhelming grant applications, capacity, resources. All right, I'm going to stop the share now. I also want to mention what Commissioner Hess was talking about regarding the visioning process. We at ReImagine Appalachia have started a ReImagine Your Community program that has been modeled on the process that Indiana County has done and Beaver County has done, and some other counties in southwestern Pennsylvania have done with this visioning process. So from the visioning process that Commissioner Hess was talking about, of course, they developed this Indiana County Sustainable Economic Development Task Force. And so I just put a link in the chat to our ReImagine Your Community Visioning Project Initiative. We currently have 9 participants from 8 different communities, however they choose to define their community. I think there might be a couple folks here that are as part of our group. I see Councilwoman Tuck from Parkersburg, West Virginia. I don't know if you're part of our cohort, feel free to drop your name in the chat. We have folks that are doing city council districts, folks that are doing counties, folks that are doing small towns or a valley cluster of towns. And so we're looking to vision these communities with a 8-month process to help lead some of our community leaders through that. So we at ReImagine are, trying to put our money where our mouth is, and helping some community leaders lead through that process. But we're also looking to you all to share resources around how we can let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation about troubleshooting and how some of us, what some of us are doing out there, what some of us have found to be helpful, what is difficult. I do want to give a shout out here. I see Mayor Reno from Sharpsburg, PA, who is actually can I say what you're doing now with the
Hey,
endowments, or do you want to give a
if you
yeah,
say it, then I didn't say it.
okay.
So you
All
can.
right, great. All right. Well, I know that let's put it this way. We have I know not all regions are endowed with this sort of resource, but we do have a philanthropic organization in Western Pennsylvania that is looking to form a there's no name for it yet, but some kind of implementation hub. Um,
Yes, the naming is an urgent priority over here in HQ.
yeah. Brittany's heading that up to try to address some of the struggles that were mentioned in the Mentimeter, but specifically figuring out how to connect certain communities to certain grants and that sort of thing. I, again, before we jump in here, I also want to mention one more resource that we are trying to do at ReImagine Appalachia. I swear, then we'll jump into a conversation. Recognizing some of these challenges, what we are starting to do at ReImagine is come up with, we have a cheeky name for it. We're calling it Grant of the Month Club, where we take a specific federal resource and we're still trying to figure out how to shape it. But we're taking a specific federal resource and doing a deep dive with communities on, I put a link in the chat to our very first one. It is the EPA Community Change Grant. The first, it's 2 hours long. So the first hour, we're going to learn about the opportunity, learn about the grant, learn about what they're looking for, maybe learn about the reporting structure. And then the second hour, we're going to be using for networking and conversation, and again, seeing where people have found success, where people may be collaborating, how people may be collaborating. Yeah, so yes, so please come. I put the link in the chat. That's just one of the resources that we're trying to provide. And we can't do all the grants. We can't do every resource, but we're trying to kind of crowdsource what grants and federal opportunities may be of most interest to some of our nonprofits, municipalities, community organizations, et cetera. So I'll leave it at that. But I'll open it up to conversation. We're taking notes. We hope some connections are made, and we'll be sharing out all these information afterwards. So I will open it up and say, well, by the way, I know that we all have community specific examples as we talk about our issues, but as we talk about community specific examples, let's try to make it relevant to the whole group as possible. So let's just start out and say, what have you found helpful in terms of what communities can offer each other, and what kind of existing networks communities have been able to plug into to make some good things happen in terms of federal resources. Joanne. We cannot hear you. You
Had
were
to pull
off.
the boom down.
Here you go.
When we had our an active climate action plan, we had created an environmental advisory board. It was a community coalition of university, county government, a sustainable director from another community. So we're partnering with a different region, a residential resident, a two business representative, the Chamber of Commerce, the the Downtown Business Association, the Main Street program, and two nonprofits that are in the community. And we did a lot of brainstorming, created a survey to find out what the community would really like to see. And we had actually started on the educational programming when our borough council shut the entire thing down. But at least we had gotten started, and we had started making that community going ahead, so that we had a lot of feedback, and and because of the survey, we found out the majority of the community wanted to do multiple different kinds of things to assist them either individually or as a group effort. And once we get the plan back in, I hope to start working on the results of that survey.
That's great. I love that optimism. I love that optimism. Anybody else? What kind of networks have you found to be helpful? What has been your approach that you have found to be helpful? And you don't have to be a municipal person here. We're looking for for everybody to join in the conversation.
So I'll go, April.
Yeah, April.
Trying to leave space for other people because I know I'm one of those. I always speak up. But first, I want to say to Shireen, like, fantastic, well done. I'm from Western PA, and I've been to Indiana, Pennsylvania, and your county and the town and the school. And just want to say that's really awesome. And to hear that it happened there just really gives me hope for the rest of our communities in Pennsylvania. Please feel free to travel to Jefferson County and tell them all about it, which is my home county. Currently I live in Northampton County, and I'm involved here. And then I work for Congressman Matt Cartwright, and have Northeast PA in about 5 counties. And, this EPA grant to reduce greenhouse gases, I swear, is the first time I feel like I've really gotten a bite from some of our municipal leaders on the different federal funding opportunities I've sent out over the last year. It was quite a while ago now that I had Natalia come and visit during a municipal leaders event, and she couldn't make it, but I handed out,
There was a
I gave out
snowstorm, if you remember.
Yeah, there was a snowstorm.
Blizzard. There was a blizzard.
Yeah, there's a blizzard. One of those that hits like the entire state. And it was just like, I keep throwing things out, waiting for things to stick. And this is really the first one. So I just want to say how excited I am for what's coming up next and for this opportunity, because some of them have really bit. And I think like the community change grants are going to be, good to pursue, because they have this rolling deadline and we have more time to prepare, rather than like I had a series of informational meetings with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. And it just it really took a while to pull information out of them, I think, because it's like, they're like still building the bus while it's driving or something along those lines. They're like out there telling people about it, but they're still also developing their plan. And which is going to be mainly for reducing industrial sector emissions, but communities can have their own plan for that. And then with the community change grants, I'm seeing an opportunity just that I put together here on ReImagine. So this is more a quick statement on how beautiful ReImagine Appalachia is. Because that talk yesterday about the 15-minute community and having everything that's walkable as a way to help people come back from trauma, to come back from poverty and from, partner abuse and all the other bad things in life, and substance abuse, or being a returning citizen, and to have everything, nearby. Also means like it's a chance to make it like an energy sustainable community, and something that's built with like low emissions. So I have some developers who are also interested in doing like low emissions, and we have this, everybody's got the housing crisis. So I thought, I'm going to have a meeting with like some developers and the municipal leaders and people at the education research place who's interested in pushing this along, because they're getting data on like where's the best place to put housing for folks who need to use our our public transportation and transit and all that. And I thought, wow, we're gonna come all together. So I'm not sure what made them bite on this, except that everyone wants to reduce their emissions. Everyone wants to like be greener, and I think understand that, yeah, like it's now or never for our planet. And I'm going to ask them all that question, Natalia, and I'm going to invite a lot of them to come to that session that you're having. So thank you. And Brittany, like your plan sounds really amazing. What's going on out there? Yeah. Like we have some multi-municipal cogs, but I don't know if they're big enough to be like sexy to the EPA for their grant that's open to municipalities.
Can you say what a COG is for folks who may
Oh,
not know?
sorry, a council of governments, right? So like usually ours are countywide, but we have a few where it's like just like 8 municipalities. So it's a bunch of governments, and that makes them a municipal entity that could apply. So whenever you're talking about what you were doing, Brittany, I thought, oh, you're a COG, maybe you're a council of governments of some sort. And CEDACOG, which is the Southeast Development, whatever. Maybe Joanne can remind me of what that stands for. Oh, you got to put down your mic.
Southeast Region Council of Governments.
Ah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, they're like a powerhouse, and they're going to go after this EPA grant, the one for reducing climate pollution emissions. And I think like we might even be like some municipalities might even be able to connect with them, which is what the DEP said. So we'll see.
Thank you, April. And I think that, April, through working again through some of that harder power through the congressman's office, has been able to leverage that and get some municipalities together. So both a ground up and a top down kind of process, meeting in a happy middle, hopefully, and a very prosperous middle, hopefully. All right, we had a lot of PA folks. How about folks from other states, West Virginia, Ohio? What have you found helpful to plug into to get through some of these barriers and struggle? It's hard out there. Yeah, Maverick.
Anybody else here from West Virginia?
Who's here from West Virginia? That's
Alabama.
really Wendy I know is from West Virginia. Wendy's from Parkersburg. I don't know who else here may be from West Virginia. That's really surprising. Where's our West Virginia folks? Come on.
I could start. So I guess a little bit of background. So the work that I do specifically is in cooperative development. And so we provide technical assistance and business plan development. Ultimately, our biggest flex is we can help folks interested in starting cooperatives like access capital, and not just small capital, like significant capital to be able to grow their cooperative projects. One example is a restaurant we're working with, Fat Daddies on the Tracks. It's a worker-owned restaurant. They started in COVID, and since COVID, we've been able to fund them, just under 500,000, like to working with that restaurant. So I guess like my struggle though has been, in order to be able to pull this type of capital down, is the local capacity to support the projects, right? Like technically, like, we could have, like, our loan fund could have given out $1 million, maybe a couple of $1 million in business capital last year, because that's available, but we will only like our lending network will only lend if we can prove that we can support these projects beginning, middle, end, if they need to pivot or change. So we take on a very few projects because right now my organizational capacity technically is just me, right? I'm literally working right now on an employment contract to hire 2 part-time folks, so that we can, I would love to, I heard stuff about Jason Tart's farm in McDowell County. I would love to be able to get this type of capital out there to them, but I can't because I need more capacity to like support the work. So, I've been working with local municipalities and governments trying to communicate like what we actually have here. If we could just get some local support. So one of the things that Mayor Goodwin always says to me is, and that's our mayor in Charleston, West Virginia, she said, Mabry, we need more Mabrys. I'm like, yes, I need money so we can make more of those, right? But it's always like a conversation in passing. I'm like, how do I actually convince them that if we invest in this cooperative development, which again is deeper than just filling or checking a box saying somebody needs a loan for some equipment, right? We're working with the people. We're teaching people new skills. We're teaching them how to make decisions as cooperatives, and it's a whole different way to operate. And so we work with people. It's very high touch, and so it's like, how do we get some of this federal money to focus on this cooperative development work, with the understanding that it's all of this pre-work like that we're going to have to be doing with people. Like, talk about working with folks down in McDowell County or in Boone County, they're going to have to be retrained in a lot of different ways. And a lot of them can probably start these construction or manufacturing businesses, but they're going to need the time to work together to figure out who their teams are, and how they can create a cooperative business model that we can then fund through our funding network. So it's like we got money sitting here over West Virginia, but we need to find a way to unlock local capacity to like develop people to be able to like pull it down. And I think that's the same with a lot of this federal money that's sitting there. A lot of times the organizations aren't stable enough in a lot of different ways. So even though they could have probably qualified for the money, they actually can't qualify for the money. So then it just gets stuck up there. I'm kind of rambling now, and I see Ms. Hess has her hand up. So I'm gonna leave it there. But I'm really just here, just kind of listening, trying to figure out like how to, like where I fit in at, or where this work fits in at, because like this money that this business capital is already here in West Virginia. People, we just can't get it to people, and I'm trying to figure out how do I increase our capacity to be able to take on more projects.
I get that. All right, let's go to Commissioner Hess and then Councilwoman Tuck.
Well, just real quick, there's a lot there. You're talking a lot of challenges that we're all facing, capacity to do any of these things. We have the will and the desire and the ideas, but the capacity and to understand how nonprofits work, all the reporting that is, involved in that, relating to financial documents and so on. So that's one thing, and I can't speak to it a lot, but I think it's something we need help with, is how you run a nonprofit, and what is the role of a board of directors and what is not the role of a board of directors. And then one thing you talked about was capital, and I wonder if on another conversation for another day, if we don't start talking about community development finance institutions. I think CDFIs or whatever it is, there are mechanisms out there that I just throw it out there as a conversation piece. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But good remarks, Mabry. Thank you.
Oops, I'm talking and muted. Councilwoman Tuck.
I want to thank you all for being here. And one of the things we did a couple years ago is we had a housing expo. We had probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 people. We did another one last year. We had over 200. We had 36 vendors. And I've been pretty successful at bringing together different community members that deal with housing issues. But I have no experience as a city planner. And our city is not really taking a active or proactive role in this. And with being on city council, I was on the bicycle committee and the holiday lights committee, and I had no access to finance or, you know, public works. I just didn't have access to any of the normal city routes. But I feel really good about the network that we brought together of bankers and credit unions and contractors, and the city participates in that, but they're not really taking a leadership. So I find myself, especially looking at funding that would be available for housing, and just thinking, I need a template or a blue plate to put together what that could look like. And it may or may not exactly come through federal funding, but I just keep thinking streets. I know the problems, but I don't have the skill to be a planner, a neighborhood planner, a city planner. And I feel like it takes a bump up from my skill level to really incorporate what people are aching to do and wanting to do together, but there's just not a driver or a person that can really get the overall viewpoint put across. And I guess that's where I'm feeling my lack of ability, but also my commitment, my interest. I apologize for driving, and I love this conference. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that capacity at the municipal public sector level for sure. All right. So we are talking a little bit about, we talked about some existing networks. Actually, I'm going to put up a blog, I think, where we have some resources for both municipalities and community-based organizations for kind of topical based capacity, whether that's safe streets or budgetary like work, understanding. I'm gonna drop that blog in the chat that has a bunch of those resources. But we need more Wendy's and more Maverys and more Shireens and more Aprils, and fortunately we haven't invented cloning yet, so I get it. All right, so let's talk a little. I mean, we talked a little bit about this, but are there any federal funding streams that people are working on right now? I also know that we have some federal representatives here. I don't know if there are any, again, federal streams that people have been looking at or working on right now that may be helpful in reaching some of your regional or local aims. But it doesn't have to be a federal funding stream. It could be a community-based philanthropy or something like that. Could be a university. Are there any resources that have been helpful in meeting some of your specific aims?
I could say in Ohio, I'm Gina and work with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, Local Development District. And we had an opportunity to participate in a cohort with ARC on Inspire. It led to the Inspire grant. And, down in Southern Ohio, and I think throughout Appalachia, we all have a lot of struggle with addiction in our communities. So the Inspire grant, and the reason I brought it up, it's actually open again right now. So it's a good time right now if you want to look at that Inspire grant through ARC. And what our approach was, it's kind of like a collaboration between business and our community action organization. So I think of it broadly as public-private. And we started like an employee resource network. So on the job, there's like an embedded success coach similar to like, like a caseworker that kind of addresses some of those workforce issues like transportation was mentioned, childcare, housing. So that's somebody at the workplace that they can drop in and say, I'm having an issue balancing my checkbook, or I'm having an issue getting we'd heard from employers manufacturing around here in Southern Ohio that had some workers that they really had been with the company a long time and they really liked them, and they had issues with transportation. There might be one car per household. And so we found that to be one of the things we could do. So that Inspire grant, if anyone out there is looking, it's ARC INSPIRE. I forget what what
Just
it
put the
all
links in
stands
the
for.
chat.
Yes.
April is the hero. Just put the links in the
Okay.
chat. Can I ask you a question, Gina?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit of a higher level of like what is a local development district? Because I think you like your entity in and of itself is helpful, and it actually stems from a federal structure and federal programming, and every region has their own local development district, whether you're in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Virginia, wherever, Georgia, Maine. So can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about that? What are you?
Yes. Well, it was funny. When I started here, that was one of the first things I had to address. I'm the public information coordinator. So I'm not in the programs, but I did actually write the Inspire grant. So that's why I brought it up with everybody, because I felt I could talk to that. I knew ins and outs on that. A local development district is a structure that we were formed back in 1965. You get your funding through the state, but it's connected to ARC funding, Appalachian Regional Commission. And it's just, we're kind of, in my mind, boots on the ground middleman. We serve 12 counties, and we try to facilitate the connection between federal and state dollars and local stakeholders. So we have monthly meetings with an executive committee with representatives from all 12 counties. And, structure wise, you're hoping that you can share information and then they can take it back to their counties and push it down. And, we're available for village mayors, township trustees, it's not just county commissioners, or we also have like a revolving loan fund here. So we do some work with banks and businesses. So, that's the structure. It's kind of like someone had mentioned earlier, there's overwhelming opportunities. How do you keep track? And my job is to send out those to the email list. Here's this opportunity, here's a webinar on it, and just try to, facilitate the connection between the federal and state and local. But I keep bumping into capacity, just like that was mentioned. Who on that township trustee or who in that small village mayor can, take the time to investigate the opportunity and then write the grant, et cetera. So we don't write grants here. We do some administrative. After you get the grant, we can help with that. We can do environmental reviews, some of those things that are actually capacity that keep a smaller entity from getting the grant. We can kind of set those aside, but that's the structure, is just try to help people.
Yeah, so a lot of folks on the ground can reach out to their LDD, or in some
Yes.
places they're called rural planning organizations, I believe. Some states have just a slightly different name, to see what resources you as the middleman can provide. So a middlewoman. So I just put a link in the chat to all the local development districts in our Appalachian footprint, and they're listed by county. So feel free to check that out. I don't know if you are in Ohio, is that correct?
Yes, Southern Ohio.
So yeah, maybe some folks, if you have connections to other Ohio LDDs that some folks may be able to tap into. We have some connections with LDDs, not all of them, but some of them. So I'll put my email in the chat if someone wants to connect to their LDD or RPO.
Oh,
All
I
right.
got a whole page of notes on you.
Great. April.
Hey, yes. So I think I put just about every link to every grant I thought of note for the ARC, because that was a great program to bring up, the Appalachian Regional Commission. And I'll just say like how the work grant has helped in Wayne County, and really it's not just Wayne County, which is like the upper northeast corner of Pennsylvania, but about 6 to 8 counties around it, as it has a recovery to work program. So the idea is that they are going to set up a suite of social services right next to the state prison. So that way there's like a substance abuse rehab there, as well as the wraparound support that could be needed to help people then get into the workforce as they leave. And I thought, like I've been working for years with folks with what we would call like reentry coalitions, which were just all the people who tend to like in organizations that support returning citizens, people as they exit our prison system, where they typically don't have like social security cards, money, a place to live, even though like they need to have a plan of where they're going to live before they even get out. So think of all the people who are just sitting in prison while they're trying to figure that out. God, it just like, it makes you so mad. And whenever I heard of this program, I'm like, well, of course the congressman's going to help you. You know, that's brilliant. And work supported it. And over a four-year period, they kept getting grants each time. And this is, I feel like, important to share, because I've had folks give like in other places in the grant layers of approval before they go to the Appalachian Regional Commission, right? Like all the advisors who would say, oh, so it's the Workforce Opportunity and Recovery something. They asked about the acronym. Sorry. It's great because it kind of like is what it is. Workforce Opportunities for Rural Communities. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the link's in the chat. And anyway, like I've had other folks with similar ideas, and they were given the advice like, well, that's not going to work because you just want to get like, as in that's not going to be acceptable because you're asking for funding just to put in a building. And it's like, well, but if you explain it that this is phase 1 in a 4 or 5 phase series of things that need to happen, so then we can provide those kind of supportive reentry, recovery to workforce services, then the Appalachian Regional Commission will see that big picture, and will fund you to get you there, or at least they did with this grant, which it was several phases. Like first we need to get the building, then we need to fit it out, then we need to like help get all the equipment, and then we'll be and pay for services for the first like so many months. So just saying, like, it really helps to be able to explain that big picture while at the same time carving out that little bit that says this is all I need this year. And the EDA is kind of similar. And these are places that just have a little more money thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act and the IIJA, the Investing in Infrastructure and Jobs Act. And Recompete was another one that we went after up here. And
oh yeah, Recompete. I'm gonna
doesn't stand for anything though. Just saying.
It did, but then it got
Did it?
really unwieldy. So yeah, I'm gonna open it up to some other folks to see if anybody else wants to chime in, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
May I?
Was it
My name
Florence?
is Florence. I'm with Bread for the World. I'm not from any agency. I just listen and learn. I'm a community organizer for multiple states. So this is just amazing information to me. And I'll talk about this in other states where I go. So someone put in the chat box, has anyone seen good examples showing how ARPA funds were used? So I happened to be at a conference and it was in Tennessee. Yeah, it was Tennessee. There's a program called Circles USA. They're in multiple countries, states across the country. they force the state to give them the money for poverty reduction. So they're working with businesses, with churches, other partners in the community to address all these things that you've been talking about, from reentry services to being unhoused to joblessness, like all of those things. They are using those funds for that. And I think it's over like a 3-year period. And obviously they're going to be tracking their success, but it's amazing what they're doing with those funds. And they've got the support of the entire community.
Thanks, Florence.
I see Pat. Oh, sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
I wanted to say thank you, and I had posted that. I do appreciate that. I'm going to look into it and would appreciate any more insight. Hi, Mabry. I'm here on the west side of Charleston, West Virginia as well, but I work in the New River Gorge region, and we have a lot of communities in a 4-county region, southern West Virginia, communities built around the coal industry that no longer are supported by that primary industry, and all need infusions of investment, manufacturing, any and all job producing solutions, you might call it. But we have communities built around these industries that are no longer supporting them, and a lot of funding opportunities with some municipal staffs of 1-2 people. I'm really interested to know if visualizations of how funding sources are being used throughout Appalachia or in any place can really show, because the communication gap that whether, you know, building capacity and being able to show, here's how this grant was used here, here's how this grant was used here. There's far more communication and capacity building than we can accomplish. In the meantime, grant opportunities pass every single day, and I'm always looking for ways to train people quickly to bring funding to our communities, because we cover 4 counties and we don't have a grant writer on staff.
Andrew, email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Okay.
Will do. Thanks.
Okay. Pat.
Everybody, I'm Pat Clark. I am here in Pittsburgh, PA, chilly Pittsburgh. Nice to have winter for a change. Andrew Davis, actually, I'm glad your question comes from the west part of Charleston, West Virginia. You may understand what I'm about to say about Penn Hills, Pennsylvania. So my firm has developed in about 35 communities, done what we call a community census, where we have end user directed planning process, so that communities tell us what data they'd like to have gathered in their communities. We then hire people from communities. Bethany, props to you for saying, and Mabry too, it's good to hire people as a first step. We do that. We train them. We equip them, and they go out and talk to their neighbors about the things that matter to their neighbors. We gather data that's then community owned data. And in Penn Hills, we were able to do this in a community of 18,000 households. We went to every one of those households this past year, and a lot of hills in Penn Hills. I did a lot of walking this project, but we were able to use some tax credit funding that came through the Allegheny Conference here in Pittsburgh to be able to match that with American Rescue Plan Act funding, so that these residents could go out and talk to all of their neighbors, find out what's important to them, and then use that data for a couple of purposes: to connect people with the resources that they said that they needed. When we do a survey, we always look for people to be able to volunteer their time, but to also allow us to connect them with resources. We usually get about 50 to 60% of the participants who do that, so that we have actionable data. But what I'm really excited about being able to do is to find out, now that we have all this data, what's the community of Penn Hills, second largest municipality in Allegheny County after Pittsburgh, what are they going to be able to do with this data to be able to go out and get funding at a time where there is more funding of this type available than any time in my lifetime, and probably anybody else's on here too. But I think that's important, to be able to have the community speak around this and to be able to take the lead on it and to own the data. I don't own the data. One of the reasons I mentioned west side of Charleston, West Virginia, is that my business partner, Tracy Jackson, undertook a similar community census process with follow-up there in the west side of Charleston last year. And they've been moving forward with doing stuff that I hope we're going to be able to maybe have a good, I've heard good things about y'all. But my hope is that this is going to set a precedence that says if you want to determine what communities want, ask them, pay them to talk, and then mobilize them as leaders, many of whom are leaders, just not acknowledged. Many people don't even know that they're leaders, and then build infrastructure that continues over time, never goes away, data, connections, resources. And we've never seen an opportunity like the one we have right now because of the current administration to be able to I spent a lot of time building guns, if you will, to use a violent thing, and only to find that there's no ammo out there. And people get frustrated over that. And people in 2008, 2009, and coming out of that economic debacle ended up with big plans and weren't able to really move forward on a lot of stuff of them. That ain't now. This is a different time. And my hope that is that places like Charleston and Penn Hills and other communities can really figure out how to lever this American Rescue Plan Act funding to be able to say, yeah, and we didn't just throw this away. People used it for their purposes and are moving their communities ahead with it.
Thank you, Pat. On that note, I believe we have like 1 more minute. I don't know. I'm gonna attempt this. I have a final Mentimeter. It is what is one step you're going to take after this session to connect your community to federal resources? Let's give this a shot. Let's see what we can come up with. We got a minute.
This was a great conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to chime in. Any closing remarks? Feel free to popcorn out as we collect these responses. Again, we'd love to have these responses for our purposes too. So. Still waiting. I hope folks are filling that out. Put the link in the chat again. Did people get that? All right, well, give it a shot. Do appreciate everybody here. Someone did say share the great info I received here. Really appreciate that.
Survey, but we're gonna do a couple Mentimeter work.
Out.
You got
Sorry,
it. Okay.
I was having a total technology collapse. Hello. Does that link work? I was not emotionally prepared to put that link in the chat. All right, I'm ready now. Welcome back, everyone. So glad to have you all. So if you click on that link in the chat, we're doing another one of these polls. Or you can drop your answer in the chat and we'll move it into the poll. But since today was focused on the idea of the stories we need to tell, and this one I believe can have longer answers, but coming out of today, what are the learnings you have that you want to make sure other people hear? What are the stories we want people to hear about Appalachia? What are the things that we don't want to forget? We love having this